I'm a truck driver. And I work for a company that finds me deliveries to do. They schedule everything with all the other companies. And I just pick up and deliver whatever and whenever I'm told. It can get pretty stressful sometimes when I get booked for a lot of shorter deliveries back to back. But this one was a long cross-country delivery. So I was looking forward to just driving and not worrying too much about anything else. I was heading from the West Coast to the East Coast and was on my second full day. I was planning on driving from 12 o'clock p.m. to 12 a.m. I'm not too picky on where I sleep. I usually just pull off at the nearest truck stop. So there was no need to plan exactly what town to pull off, and around 9:00 p.m. I made my last stop for the night at a small gas station. I filled up the tank and got some off-brand caffeinated drink to try out. Then got back in the truck and pulled out. Now I just had 3 more hours to go, and with the roads being a lot more clear, it shouldn't be too bad. I turned on some country music and just stared at the road, mostly spacing out or thinking about whatever came to mind. Then I want to say it was around 11 o'clock p.m. A sudden scratchy noise startled me out of my head. It was the radio. I had it on the same channel as other truckers, which we often use the chat while driving, though usually that's only during the day. I can't remember the last time someone was talking through it at night. I looked in my mirrors and didn't see any nearby trucks, and there was nobody in front of me either. Before I could grab the walkie though, the scratchy noise came back, and there was a quick instant where I could hear a voice. It was only a split second, but it sounded like they were either saying hello or help before it cut out again. There's obviously a big difference between the two. So I quickly grabbed the radio and asked if someone needed something. I waited for a while holding the radio and listening to the soft buzzing noise coming from it. There was something unnerving building up inside of me as I continued to wait, and still got no response. But then my headlights lit up something on the road ahead. I slowed down, and once I saw that it wasn't moving, I pulled off to the side and stopped. There was a semi-truck parked right in the middle of this one-lane highway. I knew this had to be the one. I heard through the radio, as there were no other trucks out here. The way it was dangerously parked on the road was concerning, and I knew something was wrong. I thought maybe they had a sudden heart attack or a stroke or something. I don't know. It sounds kind of crazy, but that would have explained the sudden stop and call for help. I stepped out and started walking up to it. The whole road was quiet, with only the sound of the grass rustling and the wind from the endless fields on either side of the highway. I called out a few times as I hurried up, but never got a response. Then I got up to the door, which was open, and looked inside. My heart sank, and I could feel the fear creeping up inside of me. No one was in the truck. There was a jacket slung over the passenger seat, and a half-empty coffee cup in one of the cup holders, and the radio was dangling from the ceiling. But no signs of anything having happened. It was like the driver just vanished. I quickly stepped back down onto the road and looked in all directions. The sound of the grass swaying in the wind suddenly became extremely eerie. My heart was pounding, and I made the decision to not risk staying past my welcome. I hurried back to my truck and drove off, notifying the police as I did. They found the truck still there, parked in the middle of the road, and still no sign of the driver anywhere. After investigating, they figured out who was driving it and reported him as missing. They also found evidence of 3 other vehicles having been parked in the grass right by the spot the semi I was at, though obviously I never saw them, and there was no way to know exactly why they were there. The search was pretty extensive for the missing driver, but they never found even a clue. As to where he is, so it's very unlikely he'll ever be seen again. But whatever happened to that other trucker, very well could have been me had I been the first to arrive at that area. Since then, I've been hyper aware of any sketchy situations, and hope to never be involved in something like that again. I was en route for an overnight delivery. Where I was driving, it was mostly empty roads. The only other people that were on the roads at this time of night were other delivery drivers. The night was going well though. Nothing interesting for the first several hours. Around 2 o'clock a.m., I stopped at a truck station to fill up and use the restroom, as the next little bit was going to be a long stretch through dense forest roads with very few places to stop at, if any, as I was driving along. In just about an hour or so after my last stop, I randomly saw something ahead. I only had a few seconds to get a good look before passing by, but there was a person standing on the side of the road again. If I wasn't already clear, there was absolutely nothing but dense unpopulated forest with no other roads or anything, so seeing a person standing out here without a car anywhere in sight was really strange. In the few seconds I looked at them though, they never waved at me or yelled for help or tried to get my attention in any way. I couldn't stop thinking about it as I drove for another mile before I suddenly saw another person standing on the side of the road. There was a woman this time. She was wearing ripped jeans and a red sweatshirt, and as I passed by we made eye contact, and she just stared at me, no smile, no frown, just an empty face. It was extremely disturbing, enough to make me literally shiver. I looked in the mirror after passing them and could see their head follow my truck before they were covered up by the dark. When I looked back at the road though, my heart almost stopped, and I slammed on the brakes. I could feel the whole weight of the semi pushing forward as I abruptly came to a stop right in the center of the road. There was a body. It was laying flat across the street though. I couldn't tell if they were alive or not. They weren't moving, but I also didn't see any signs of an accident, like there was nothing else on the road. And the way that they were positioned, it didn't look like a car had hit them or anything like that. I felt like I needed to check if they were okay, but also I had this really bad feeling about whatever this was. I mean, seeing 3 people out here in just the span of a mile is a crazy coincidence. I looked around at the forest covering either side of me, and this sense I had only continued to grow. After being stopped for a whole minute, I put it back in drive and carefully drove around the body. My heart was still racing, and when I finally got around them and started back on the road, I checked my mirrors one last time. The body wasn't on the ground anymore. They were standing up and watching me drive away. My eyes were peeled for the rest of that drive, as I was genuinely terrified. I didn't see any more people along the road though. I think that it was a setup of some kind. They were probably trying to get me to stop and check on them, but clearly they weren't dead or injured, so what they would have done, I really don't know. Seeing those other people before though, there's no saying how many others could have been around, or even literally sitting in the forest right next to me, just waiting for me to get out of my truck. Even just rethinking about that night still creeps me out.